Celia Bigelow, Human Shield from American Majority Action, is with us on the program. Celia, thank you for joining us so that I might hide behind you.
Thanks for having me on. I'm glad I could provide the safety for you.
Absolutely. Next time, please be in studio so I can actually do the interview cowering behind you so that folks can't even see me.
Definitely.
Yeah, we were. So I've already gone over the story here in the Atlantic Wire that Elspeth Reeve wrote, how the NRA uses women as human shields. What I find most amazing about this piece, Celia, is that really it's not about the NRA. It's not really about it's certainly not about the women the NRA using women as human shields. To me, it seems like Elspeth Reeve is trying to say, well, look, at the same time, there are conservatives who say that women should be able to own AR-15s and use firearms for self-defense. There are conservatives, too, and maybe they're the same ones, but maybe they're not the same ones, who also say that women should not be able to serve in combat because, the guns would be too heavy and things of that nature. I think that's it's a simplistic argument. B, she neglects the fact that there are plenty of conservatives out there who say, yeah, women should be able to serve in combat. I'm one of them.
I agree too.
So I think this is this isn't just making a mountain out of a molehill. This is a manufactured story.
Well, yeah, and I agree. And not to mention, let's talk about the hypocrisy in this. The hypocrisy in the liberal argument that, the NRA and the Republican Party are using women as shields in this whole gun debate. Well, what do they say about Obama bringing out children, having children behind him in his press conference on his gun control debate? What do they call that?
That's leadership.
Obama is using children as shields in this gun debate to bolster his argument. But the thing is that I'm quite offended that they used me in this article because I wrote this piece without anyone approaching me to write and make this argument. I am making this argument that I want to use an AR-15 for self-defense for my own reasons. This isn't a partisan argument. This is my choice to use this gun for self-defense. This has nothing to do with the Republican Party. This has nothing to do with the NRA. This has everything to do with my Second Amendment rights.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, it was interesting. New York Magazine had a piece, and it was written by a woman, and it was called something like "The Liberal Case for Gun Control," and it was written by a woman who, when she was 12, was actually present when a teenager went into a school dance in Pennsylvania and opened fire, and she talked about how at the time they had the grief counselors, and she and her friends talked about how the media had sort of turned their small town into this fishbowl that the entire world could view at any time with the 24/7 media. And she talked about the fact that nobody in their community blamed the guns. They blamed this individual. Again, the right to keep and bear arms is not a conservative right. It's not a right of Republicans. It's a right of all law-abiding Americans. There are plenty of progressives. There are plenty of Democrats out there who own firearms, much less, not to mention the independents and those who have no party affiliation whatsoever who own firearms. The attempt, I think, by people like Elspeth Reeve to try to make this a conservative versus liberal issue or a Republican versus Democrat issue, I think that there's an agenda there. It's not only is it cultural bullying, not only is it an attempt to make the NRA look like they're sexist pigs cowering behind women, but there's also the attempt to tell liberals, to tell progressives, to tell independents, to tell Democrats, hey, you know what? You can't be a gun owner. If you're a gun owner, you're not being true to us. And you're not being true to the movement because this is a conservative thing. This is a Republican thing. And why would you want to be a part of that?
Well, exactly. And, this hypocrisy can be seen everywhere, too. And it's not just in the media. It's also in the federal government itself. I don't know if you saw this past week, but there were reports that were surfacing about how the Department of Homeland Security this past June requested 7,000 select fire firearms. These are firearms that can be fired semi-automatically or automatically with 30-round clips for self-defense purposes for their government workers. So basically what we're seeing here is this total hypocrisy surfacing, and it's essentially, you know, self-defense for me, but not for thee. We can use it when we use these weapons. They're considered self-defense weapons. But when I personally own an AR-15, when I use that gun, it's referred to as an assault rifle. So the hypocrisy is everywhere. It's in the media. It's in the federal government, and we're just going to keep seeing it surfacing.
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right about that. I mean, this is not going away. And in fact, the media, I said this earlier, for a month now, they've been trying to set this narrative that Americans' minds have been changed by the massacre that occurred at Sandy Hook Elementary. And now Americans are speaking up and demanding gun control, when in fact, that's not what we're seeing at all.
That's not the case. And a lot of polls are saying that's the case, but there is an interesting poll that came out today that was done by Reason and Roop. And it actually changes that narrative around, because it shows that actually there's a slim majority of people that actually believe that people should be able to own assault rifles. And it's all about, and they did the study, it's all about how you ask people questions. So this, and actually, shockingly, the strongest supporters of people owning assault rifles in this poll that came out today were young Americans. Surprisingly, who overwhelmingly supported Barack Obama.
Right? You're right. I mean, 18 to 24-year-olds, I think it was over 70%. I gotta tell you, Celia, every time you say assault rifle and you don't say quote unquote, you make me cringe. Though, please don't do that. Don't buy into. I mean, seriously, don't do that. What is an assault rifle, Celia?
I usually say it, but when I'm talking fast, it kind of slips up.
Well, don't. They're semi-automatic rifles. Why use their verbiage, particularly when it's made up?
Exactly, it's propaganda. I think Newt Gingrich made the point perfectly last week on Piers Morgan, saying it is a propaganda term. These aren't assault rifles. These rifles are actually only used in 0.6% of murders across the country. 35% more murders occur with the use of knives than with these quote-unquote assault rifles.
Yeah, and you know that you talk about that recent Roop poll, I thought it was fascinating. Not only the fact that a vast majority of 18 to 24-year-olds say, no, these guns shouldn't be banned. But, you know, they asked the question, so define assault weapon. And it was a very open-ended question. They just asked the people to define it. Not one answer actually got more than 30%. And I think the most common response at 29% was basically a fully automatic machine gun. That's what people thought Senator Feinstein is talking about when she says we need to get these guns off the street. So, you know, there is an attempt, I think a very deliberate attempt, to keep it as confusing as possible to the American people so that non-gun owners, you know, they get asked this question, well, should we ban these guns? And if they think that they're talking about machine guns, if they think that they're talking about things that, frankly, have been heavily regulated since the 1930s, you know, it's going to be very easy for the media to get the response that they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly right. It's to cause confusion. It's to push their overall agenda, which I believe is to eventually try to remove all guns off the streets and make it extremely difficult for the American people to get a hold of guns in general.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, listen, Celia, you're everywhere now. Soon you'll be too big a human shield to come on our program.
Please.
You're going to be on Hannity. Is that right?
I will be on Hannity tonight at 9:20 p.m.
All right. Well, listen.
And I'll be discussing the Department of Homeland Security came out with a video on what to do if a gunman enters your home or a public place.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. I mean, they actually say, you know, you may want to fight back, but grab scissors. Grab scissors and do it. Exactly. You know, and that's the thing. Look, if you're admitting, all right, yes, you may want to defend yourself, then why tell me? But you only have to use very ineffective objects with which to, you know, to defend yourself.
Exactly.
All right, Celia, listen, appreciate your time, and look forward to having you on again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.